everyone. Today we have a special guest with us who is a principal data scientist in both corporation and he has experience being a director in Fidelity Investments. So he's going to be talking to us on a very interesting note. He's going to be talking about computational people science, that is having non-intrusive use cases of AI in nature. So I'm really glad to have you here, Ashwin. So, would you like wanna probably like talk a little more about what you do at your job at Bose, and what are your day-to-day responsibilities, and what are some of the interesting projects you're working on?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, Aishwarya, thank you for having me. I just realized that I guess first three letters of our names match. So yeah, glad to be here. So more about myself. I'm Ashwin Thoda. I'm currently working as a data scientist for Post Corporation.
Your voice is actually cracking a little bit.
Oh,
Yeah, now it's better.
yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so I lead the AI for business, initiatives at Bose Corporation. So what that means is basically how we can use, AI and data science to improve internal business outcomes versus building products using AI. And before this, I worked for Fidelity Investments for a long time, doing all kinds of data science, AI, data analytics. If I backtrack, a few years back, I used to do BI work as well. So I'm really passionate about this topic. Really looking forward to connect with most of you and take questions.
That's amazing. So I was pretty excited for this talk because we have had a lot of talks in general about technical data science and technical use cases of AI, but this is the first time that we're talking about like a human resource or like a people science use case of AI. And it's very interesting because a lot of people have been asking me these questions, but I unfortunately didn't have the right resources. But now I have you to talk about it. So I'm like really excited about this. So yeah, let's not waste any time and let's jump into it.
All right, let me share my screen. Aishwarya, can you see the screen?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Let's get into this. So the title of the talk is Computational People Science. So and I specifically mention as a tagline non-intrusive use cases of AI in HR, and there's a reason why I specifically want to highlight that. And this is the high-level agenda of today's talk, right? So we'll begin the talk by understanding the current state of AI in enterprise, and then we'll make a use case for like why people analytics, like why do we need to do it now by using AI, and then we'll spend a few minutes trying to understand like people analytics versus computational people science, and then the meat of the presentation will go into two specific use cases of how one might leverage AI in the human resources function. And lastly, we'll conclude the talk by discussing how HR is unique and how implementing ethical AI and clean AI is of paramount importance there. And throughout the talk, you can ask your questions, and I'll have some logical pauses, and I'll be happy to take them along the way as well. All right. So I think I gave a background about myself. I'm fortunate to be working in the space of BI, data engineering, data analysis, and now data science and AI. I'm also fortunate to build AI functions, AI solutions for different functions such as HR, sales, marketing, customer experience, supply chain, etc. And when I get breaks from feeding my kids and changing their diapers, I like to work out. I like to read a lot about data science. I like to also taste new food. And I'm also a contributing author at several outlets such as Redgate, SMU, Thrive Global, ET, etc., etc. All right. So what you're seeing on the screen, is a visual that I took from recently published Deloitte Insights, right? So they tried to summarize in the current state of AI in enterprise, and and the way to read this is, what are some of the top two perceived benefits of implementing AI in the enterprise, and you can see different use cases, right? So making processes more efficient in the top right, improving decisions, creating new products, lowering costs, discovering insights, a lot of good things that are coming out of AI for the enterprise. Now, let me ask you this question, right? What would be the most important asset or thing that people need to implement any of these, right? If you're thinking about like people, talent, data scientists, then you're right, right? People are number one asset for any progressively thinking company, right? They're also number one cost function for most of the companies. And yet, if you think about using AI in HR, that doesn't often come into limelight, right? And there are plenty of reasons for that, but hopefully, through this talk, I'll make a good case for future data scientists or any of the data scientists who are currently conducting research, like why people analytics and HR can be an amazing opportunity to kind of develop AI solutions for. Right. With that motivation, let's jump into understanding what we mean by people analytics. Right. Not going to read through the entire definition, but at a high level, so people analytics is a function where we use data understand talent, improve talent, and hence, as a byproduct of that, improve the business outcomes as well. So just like any other analytics function, there are different domains within people analytics, and these certainly are not everything that's out there, but these are the top ones, right? So workforce planning. So this is how people and companies try to understand how many should we hire this year, what skills, which locations, et cetera, et cetera. And then the next one is talent analytics. So basically understanding your interview process, everything related to pre-hire using data. And then the most popular one is HR analytics, and it's good enough maturity levels in most of the organizations. So basically providing insights into the current employee base using data. And then external labor market analytics. So this is basically studying what's in the market, right? What is the talent availability? What is the hiring rate? Who is the top competition? How diverse is the talent externally? So all that fits into this bucket. And lastly, benefits analysis or compensation analytics. This function pays close attention to, are we doing justice with our compensation model? Like how good or how bad are we even compared to our competition in terms of the salary structure, et cetera, right? And the important thing to note is traditionally people analytics used to rely on dashboards, analysis, and even like they might go to insights level, right? So next, I want to just take you on a journey to understand what computational people science means, right? So the way that this is different than people analytics is, computational people science leverages big data and computationally intensive algorithms such as AI and machine learning to draw insights, build scalable solutions with a hope to improve people experiences and drive business efficiencies, right? So people analytics typically focuses on what happened before, so leverages the data to provide improved decision making capabilities to business users, whereas computational people science leverages statistics, machine learning, natural language processing, and AI to think forward. So basically, use data to predict future, so that we can, with an intention to improve people's lives. Um, and here are some of the use cases. And after this, I'll take a quick pause. Um, and again, this is not everything that's out there, but these are some of the top ones. So first use case is predicting the quality of hire, right? Using machine learning and stats to understand the traits of most successful associates, so that you can use that information to coach the associates in the right direction. Machine learning driven job recommendations. So, how can we leverage ML, NLP, and AI to kind of, recommend jobs based on skills instead of just, job function. The other one, which is my favorite, how can we reduce gender bias in language, using AI and NLP? And attrition analysis, understanding the factors that leads an employee to quit the company, and understand that using machine learning, so that we can design some programs and approaches to keep them on board for longer periods of time. Sentiment analysis, we all fill out employee surveys, pulse surveys. How can we use computational methods to anonymously summarize those sentiments and present those findings back to the leaders, so that they can use that information to common well-being of the employees. And lastly, organizational network analysis. Some people also call it social network analysis. So basically, using graph theory and network analysis to understand where the bottlenecks are, how information is flowing throughout the organization, and how can we create a cohesive work culture, so that we can improve collaboration. Let me take a quick pause here and check with Aishwarya to see if you have any questions so far.
Hi, Ashwin. Yes. So, when you started talking about people science and different organizations, right? So, what we typically speak about is a regular data scientist role, right? Where they are building models for some of the use cases that I see on your screen, right? In terms of like how do we improve hiring, like, or how do we reduce attrition? What are some of the other ways where people can contribute with in the data science space while not having the data science skills? So what are the other ways that what other roles are available for people to explore in the space of like data science and human resource that people can explore?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess like any other function, people analytics again is a combination of resources, drawing experiences from different backgrounds of work experiences, right? So, for instance, the traditional people analytics heavily relies upon the skills of data engineering, your data analysis, dashboarding, and all of that. And you have someone called HR business partners, who
Yeah.
are HR business analysts, who basically bridges the gap between your tech folks and the HR business, so that they play the role of SME. And then you also have data engineering, right? So just like any other function, um, HR moved to the cloud as well. Uh, Workday being one of the popular systems out there. Data engineers also play a key role when we think about blending information between a variety of sources, such as resumes and job
Yeah.
descriptions, to the traditional tables and rows. So, I think the biggest advantage of HR is everyone can relate to it, right? Versus,
Yeah.
say, marketing, you need specific years of domain knowledge. HR, like probably everyone who is working, have some ideas around how their work HR is working and how can they improve it, right? So it's easy to kind of get into this field when compared to others. So I hope that answers that question.
Yes, absolutely. And interestingly, I saw this comment which came in, and I wanted to refer this to you. So what this person is asking is that we see a lot of use cases with respect to uh, recommendations, right? Like, or hiring process where we are building models and using these machine learning model predictions for the hiring process. So I want to like get your thought on it. How much do you think this is automated versus how much manual processing is still happening? Because we one of the use cases that we see recently with Amazon, and that's what the person is asking about, is that Amazon had some
Yep.
misleading use like misleading uh, output of these hiring systems, right? Like they were not able to hire the right kind of people, or they were seeing this gender bias in their hiring
Mhm.
systems. So what is your comment on that? Like, how do we see that these systems or like these hiring processes are built, and there are like models which are running behind it, but how much of a human intervention do we need in these systems?
Yeah, I mean, so whoever asked that, like, thank you so much for asking that question, and I had it on an agenda to kind of briefly touch upon it at the very end of the talk. You know, to be honest, I think the reason why Amazon kind of scraped that project is one, obviously, not having access to good data, right? Uh, as we all know, or most of us know, the AI models are only as good as the data that you feed into it. If you think about HR space, getting that representative data is almost impossible to do, right? So you can be a big company like Amazon where you have access to, let's say, millions of profiles, but still that's not representative, right? So my take on this is, instead of, I'm not still convinced that AI can replace recruiters, I guess, right? But AI can certainly um, enrich the recruitment experience. So when I say job recommendation, so basically what I mean here is not assist in the hiring process, but instead, so for example, we all work for companies where you get job recommendations asking you to consider applying for it, but when you open it, let's say you're a data scientist, but then the job that you get is software engineer, right? So how can we actually, send more appropriate jobs to your inbox so that you open it? But to answer that specific question, no, I don't think we are there yet where we can completely automate. And I also don't think that that's the right approach to go forward, especially in HR.
Yeah,
As the name indicates, this is human resources. So
yeah,
human factor should never be I guess, eliminated, right? So yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I don't think we should focus on that, but rather
yeah.
to focus on use cases where you're bringing more transparency, reduce bias, or enriching the experience of the existing
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Ashwin, one more follow-up question that I had around this topic is having the subject matter expertise, right? Like as you rightly mentioned, that when we are building these models, we might not have the right representation either in terms of data or in terms of the people who are building these systems. So either we don't have the equal representation of what we see in the society on the table who are building these models. We might not see like equal representation of women or like of different race who are involved in building these systems, and that's probably one of the reasons that we see that the applications that we are building are not catering to all the like all the sections of the society. So
Yep.
what is your take on that, that how can we improve this experience and how can we make this more of a equity based system, right? Like where everybody feels included in this when we are building these applications.
Yeah, absolutely. And another great question, and this is specifically important to HR because, like, HR is trying to. I mean, a lot of companies are trying to improve their diversity, but if you don't have, diverse representation, then one might argue that the ideas might not flow, right? So some of the things that we did in the past is intentionally forming diverse and inclusive squad, as we call it. So basically, so for every project, I mean, it's not that the data scientist cannot do, the end-to-end projects. They are capable of doing it, but should they do it, right? So how do we intentionally involve good representative, team in that squad so that, for example, right? Um, when I grew up in India, like some of you. Some of the ideas that come to us might not even, occur to, the natives who are working here, right? So, the same thing might be valid for if you have an all-men, all-star
Yeah.
squad,
Yeah.
then how can you even expect the squad to think about problems that, women or ethnic minorities face
Yeah,
in.
yeah, absolutely.
So
One of
it's
the
very important.
examples that I wanted to add when you were talking about that, I just it just came to my mind that I've heard a lot of talks which are given by CEOs of different companies, right? So one of the unique things that I see is being spoken by a lot of CEOs who are immigrants or who are non-nationals of United States. They do talk about the immigration process or the pain behind it. So that's something which is probably not addressed by somebody who is belonging to this nation, and it just doesn't occur to their head, right? Like it just
Right.
doesn't come to their mind that what could be a problem, or what could be the challenges which come with immigration process. So that's where I feel like if we have the equal representation, if we have enough people in even in the leadership who are coming from different races, or who are coming from different sections of the society, it's really good, and it builds up the company culture in a really really good way.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And remember the whole idea around diversity and inclusion. Part of it is also defining what diversity means to them, right?
Yeah.
So most of them just assume that diversity is based on gender, race, or ethnicity,
Yeah.
but you have to embody them, right? So, for example,
Exactly.
diversity can be based on skills as well, right? So, for
Yeah.
example, if you're a complete Java shop, and if your direction is to come up with some shiny AI products, you don't have enough skill diversity, right? So you need to
Yeah.
bring those, new capabilities, and the same thing. So I think part of the process is also, you know,
Yeah.
it's funny is when you think about diversity and bias, that's when actually you're inducing bias into that because you're defining what bias
Yeah.
is. So it's
Yeah.
very important to think about it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely agree with that. So yeah, that's the points I had, and yeah, we can jump onto your presentation again.
All right, cool. Let's move on. So today I'll be focusing on this couple of use cases. So the first one is how can we use AI to improve internal talent mobility and also rediscover talent. The second use case is how do we use AI and NLP to to reduce gender biases in job descriptions. Um, I'll define what internal movement means, and also define talent rediscovery, and we'll spend a few minutes into the technical details of implementing the system. All right. So some companies, if you're working for big companies, probably you already heard about internal mobility, career vitality, et cetera, et cetera. Why is it helpful, right? So basically, it helps with retention. So there is a famous saying, probably most of you heard about it. People don't leave companies, but most often they leave their bosses, right? So if you're unhappy about your current role, companies might be better off moving you to a different group instead of losing you to a competitor, right? It also helps with leadership development. So if you're someone who moved around with the company, then you become sum total of all those business units, and all of a sudden 10, 20 years from now, you embody the culture of every single business unit, and you represent the company as a whole, right? It's cross company collaboration. You retain that core culture, and you kind of cross pollinate that across different business units, and hence create an enriching culture within. So talent rediscovery. So probably all of us have been in, experienced this probably, right? There is one job and they only hire one candidate, but tens, sometimes hundreds of us apply, and very few reach to the final round. but only one gets selected, right? Uh, Maybe because he or she is not 100% fit, or probably they think that the other person has some additional qualifications. So how can we tap into what I call silver medalists for the future opportunities and keep them engaged and refer them right opportunities, right? And again, the key design principle that I encourage people to follow here is, this is not to this is not to help with hiring process, right? I would like to believe that experts need to do the hiring process, and very little should be automated. But instead, I think we can promote awareness, increase awareness among associates and the external candidates by sending them, right jobs, right? So with that design principle in mind, so one has to cast a wider net. So what I mean by that is, it's okay to recommend jobs to someone who doesn't have 100% of the skills, right? So for example, if you're looking for I don't know, someone with advanced deep learning experiences, and the candidate only has, let's say, traditional machine learning experiences, it's okay to send them, right? So we know that data tells us that people can learn these skills fast, but if you send them some crappy job which is outside of their field, there is a good chance that they lose interest in applying for the companies. So that's the design principle that I think would help you with these projects. So this is the high level process overview. So just like any other machine learning project, like we have different phases, right? So one is, the data phase, data cleansing, data extraction, and then there's some storage that is needed to perform this. And then last one is productionizing it. So in the data space, so what we have here is, remember, like we are trying to recommend jobs to candidates. So the inputs is obviously your job description. And from the job description, you can extract rich information such as, skills, education requirements, experiences. And you can also extract information from candidate profiles such as applicant tracking systems, resumes, their talent profiles. And then you can store that information so that you can use that for other projects in the future. And the last one is like sending out recommendation emails, right? So this is basically productionalizing this model, because this is not interactive. This model goes hand in hand with your existing job recommendation engine. So let's look at some of the details, right? So the most complex part of this project is to extract skills, right? Why is it complex? For example, most people write skills in a free-form text way, right? So you can write MS SQL, you can write MS space SQL, you can write MS SQL Server, you can write Microsoft SQL Server, right? See how there are like many combinations of skills, ways in which you can write skills. So we decided to follow a machine learning way again here. So basically, we built a custom, named entity recognition model. And once we recognize, and we did that for hard skills and soft skills. So soft skills are, presentation skills, negotiation skills, et cetera, leadership skills. Hard skills are Java, Python, C++, et cetera, right? And once we have this set of skills identified using NER models, the next build, what I call skills to vex. So basically, having some building some language models to identify similarity between skills, so which we then use to compute scores between job descriptions and the candidate profiles. All right, so a little bit more about the scoring process here before we take second pause. So you can have multiple candidates and you have one job description. So we extract skills. We created NER that helps us to extract these skills, and we use information internally, externally to come up with skills to X so that we understand, for example, the distance between SQL and Tableau, Python and R. And then we compute vectors, and we augment, your number of years of experience needed, education's needed. We kind of augment all of that, and we compare, similarity. So one way to compare similarity is just a normalized, cosine similarity. There are many more ways to do it, but this is the most simplistic way. And you'll have multiple matching candidates, and you have multiple weights put on them based on the probabilities, right? And then you as a company can decide what is your threshold, right? So will I send my emails to candidates who are at least a 50% match, 60% match, or should I raise the bar high and choose the matching to be 80 or 90%? But what works better is if you cast a wider net, like I described before, and keep the threshold a little lower so that you're attracting more candidates. So let me take another question. Any questions about the process or anything that I mentioned thus far?
So yeah, for now, like I think we're going good. No,
All
no
right,
more
cool.
questions. Yeah.
All right. So next one is one of my favorites. Like, how do we remove biased language from job descriptions? All right. So first of all, why is why is gender bias important to study, and why is it specifically important in the HR community? And I think some of the listeners already asked some good questions, and these are some of the hard stats, right? And KPIs and stats don't lie. So number one, only 25% of the senior managerial posts were held by women, right? And research also shows that men apply for jobs if they at least meet 60% of the qualifications. But at large, women typically only apply if they think that they're 100% or close to 100% fit for the job, right? So probably we've seen jobs out there where they just dump skills, right? So Java, Python, Ruby, SQL, C, mainframes. Like, don't do that. There are real adverse effects for that. And also, language has impact, right? So biased language and using the masculine tone in job descriptions, it can lower the chances of attracting female applicants. So can we do anything with AI and NLP? And the answer is yes, right? So I'm just going to give you a super high level description of the experimentation setting, and I'll intentionally dumb it down so that people can easily follow. We have a job, and multiple candidates apply for the jobs, and for the sake of simplicity and for the sake of experimentation purposes, I just define gender to be male versus female. And we also have external demographic informations based on the type of job and where you posted it. So let's take an example. So let's say you're trying to recruit for a software engineer role in Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. You attracted 70% male and 30% female applicants. And based on the labor market statistics available in the Dallas-Fort Worth market, there are only 25% female candidates for the software engineering roles. So that means you beat the market by 5%. And then we denote the dependent variable to be 1. If the opposite happens, if you get fewer percentage of female applicants than what's available in the market, the dependent variable becomes 0, right? So that's the dependent variable. And the job description, the attributes for this So you have skills from the job descriptions. We have education requirements, experience requirements, and we also computed POS tags, part of speech tags, for every word that is not a skill, education, or experience. So this way we would know, are we using adjective? If yes, what kind of adjectives are we using? Are we using, numbers to denote anything? So that kind of stuff. And we also engineered a lot of features, count of skills in the job descriptions, range of years of experience asked, number of times we denoted experience using a digit, similarity between skills, basically how similar and how dissimilar the skills are within a job description, etc., etc. And then we design experiments out of this so that we use the historic data to study what are the significant variables, right? Some jobs attract really high, female applicants even within the same function, but some others don't, right? So that's the experimentation setting, and these are some of the high level results that we observe, right? So so when you use numeric digit to represent experience, so for instance 15 plus years of Java, 10 plus years of SQL, 100 plus years of machine learning, if you use digits to represent experience, so that has a very high adverse effect. Instead, consider representing experience using adjectives such as knowledgeable in, passionate about, proven experience, significant experience. And also, having total number of skills has negative experience. What we found to be good here is if you use, for example, consider a job description which says we need a data scientist with logistic regression, linear regression, naive Bayes, XGBoost, random forest, kinds of deep learning. Versus contrast that with significant experience with clustering, classification, regression methods, and also experience with several variations of neural networks. Right, which of them sound better to you, right? And it's proven that if you use generalized terms, and yet capture the essence of it, I think it is appealing to more diverse candidates. And the adjectives that you use. So, for example, if you use, we need a rock star data scientist to hit the ground running. We need a heavyweight data scientist to punch a lot of to punch the data out and extract insights. Right. So these are all masculine terms, and unconsciously they don't really appeal to women. Right. So pay close attention when you're writing job descriptions. And lastly, presence of non-transferable skills. So, for example, if you have a job description which asks for SQL, Python, Tableau, and then mainframes, just like that, so you're already shrinking your applicant pool because, like, you're trying to hire for two persons, not one, right? And again, this research is just scratching the surface. There are many more things that we can do. Same can be applied towards, how do you draft your communication? How do you interact with your customers? And gender is not binary anymore. Like, how can you make observations about different diverse audience, right? So, and this is the last topic that I wanted to communicate before I take more questions. So, garbage in, garbage out, right? So the data that we use for training, if it's biased, AI will only reflect that and extrapolate that. So it's very important to do right projects and with right representation, both from data and from teammates. And the second recommendation is start by using AI to kind of improve existing HR practices, enrich them instead of replacing them. So I think one of the listeners already asked this question. And lastly, focus on systems that that show causation or correlation. In other words, don't crave for accuracy or other metrics. It's not everything. In some cases, yes, but in this case, explainable models, interpretable models carry much more weight than models with high amount of accuracy. Use this advanced analytics, machine learning, and AI to communicate the message, to start a dialogue, and be the torchbearer for a data-driven change in the HR at your organization. So that's all I have for today. Any questions at all on any of these topics or anything related? I'd be happy to take.
Yeah, so I wanted to, like, if you can maybe go to the previous slide. This is something I wanted to, probably spend a little more time on, where you mentioned the ethical part behind building these systems, right? Like, so what are probably like some of your tips that people can actually do this in the sense that how can organizations take a step into getting these from like theory into practice? Because like yes, organizations do hear it from external sources or like news articles everywhere that we need to bring in ethical aspects of like building better machine learning models or like building better AI systems. So how does an organization in like a meaningful manner get these techniques into their workflow? How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think specifically for the HR, one of the examples. I mean, we already discussed about that, right? So, for instance, many systems have been scraped or put into shelves because they only increase the problem. So what do we really mean by that, right? So if you look at typical machine learning setups, like we get the data and we do experimentation, and and we have KPIs to kind of interpret that, and data scientists might say, oh yeah, I mean, so it's generalizable in the sense that based on our data that we have access to, it's generalizable, right? But then let's take an example where let's say you are expanding to a different location, and let's
Mhm.
say you're trying to recruit for a role which is not represented in your data, right? Then what can you do, right? Can you use existing models to just implement for this situation, or should we actually stop using this model for that kind of role? So the answer is not simple, right? So the problem lies in the fact that we cannot foresee the world, and hence we need the representative data in our systems. But if we don't have representative data, one option is to I've seen people spending a lot of time trying to synthetically manufacture good representative data, so that we have systems that better generalize. That's one option. And the other option too is purchasing the data, right? So for
Yeah.
instance, especially in this HR world, where all this resume data and the profile data is tightly guarded, the options are less. But for example, when we built the model for gender bias, one thing
Yeah.
that we did is we went outside of the box and we actually looked at blog articles, technical blog articles written so that we can understand the writing styles between female and male authors, right? So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
don't just rely on your sources, but try to expand it.
Yeah.
The other thing too is, when you're drawing inferences,
Mm-hmm.
try to favor for human in loop kind of architecture. So meaning like, have some external diverse body, a
Mm-hmm.
governance committee, kind of validate and form opinions on this, right?
Yeah.
Um, so the idea being, if you don't have majority vote on moving this model forward, I think there's no point rushing towards productionalizing it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the tip number two is like try to enrich, right? So we typically think about AI and machine learning as systems we deploy in production,
Mm-hmm.
but it can just be a simple. When I say simple, it can the output can be a PowerPoint presentation as well, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Where you actually created the models using machine learning, but then you're assisting your existing human resources practices by
yeah, yeah,
providing them insights.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, that's a great point, right? So I wanted, like, I think there's one question that I had from the audience. They're asking that is this the same model that would work for, say, product and customer profiles versus when we are trying to use them for external, like, job recruitment?
I mean, I guess the idea is similar, right? And there can for customer and product recommendations, there are many more data points.
Yeah,
But here, like you are limited with what you can do, right? Um, so I guess the framework is similar, but the scale at which and the complexity at which you can implement is vastly different.
makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. Great. So yeah, these were some of the questions that I had, and it was. Thank you so much, Ashwin. Like, it was a very insightful discussion, and we covered a lot of different points. So yeah, it was great chatting with you, and yeah, okay. Okay. So yeah, this was really great chatting with you. We covered a lot of different points, not just in terms of like what is happening in HR systems, what kind of different models can be built, what are the different use cases, but we also like pointed upon um, what are the ethical issues that actually arise in the HR space, right? Like how can they be tackled? So this was like very insightful, and again, like I wanted people to know, like who are probably attending this call, that it's not just a data science role that's existing in the HR space. There's a lot of different personas who are required in the HR space who are also closely working with these data science or like AI products, but they need different expertise. They would need subject matter experts who have, like expertise in psychology or like in human behavior, etc., so that they are able to understand what's the impact of these systems that are being created. So there's like a lot of opportunities for all different experts out there in the HR field who want to like explore the space of data science, because I personally know like a few of my acquaintances. They are also working in the HR space, but they are focusing more on how can they build diversity and inclusion in the organization, how can they build better products where like people are able to leverage the right resources when they're working from home. So all these aspects are also really important. So yeah, thank you so much, Ashwin. Do you have any like closing thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity and also the questions and people who tuned in. Um, this is relatively a new field, right? And if you go out there and try to search for computational people science, you'll hardly find anything.
Yeah.
I think we need a lot of thought power experiences from people like yourself. You tuned in to kind of shape up this organization
Yeah.
and just be part of this journey and have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ashwin. Have a nice day. Thank you everyone for tuning in.